I had this dream my whole life of flying airplanes. And so, I grew up in a small town, kind of lived out in the county. And so there just weren't a lot of resources at the time. This was before YouTube and social media, and it was a lot harder to try and figure out your way through really any career. And I told my granddad, Papa, I pointed up at him. I said, I'm going to do that when I grow up.
That's
And
awesome.
he kind of chuckled and he said, well, son, he said, I hope you do.
All right, welcome back to the Built for Profit podcast. I am fired up today because we have a very, very close friend of mine, Mr. Josh Waddell, joining us. It's going to be so much fun. But honestly, I just got to brag on him just for a second before I give you the little introduction, Josh. But dude, it's been like such a privilege, obviously, getting to know you over the past 5 years or so. He has essentially become like an advisor in my life. I literally go to him for everything in my life. I external process. He just gives me all the feedback I need. He's just a fantastic friend in that way. Obviously, we'll talk a little bit. He's experienced so many different careers and things in his life. Can't wait to chat about that. And he's just honestly pushed me to get out of my comfort zone in so many ways. So he's just a trusted friend in my life. Super fired up to chat with him today. So Josh, welcome to the podcast. And yeah, if you want to start us off here, man, I would love for you just to kind of give little background. You can kind of talk as much as you want about just family life, career life, the different experiences you've experienced up to this date. Give us a little background here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Austin, thank you so much for having me on. It's an honor to be on here. As I've told you time and time again, I'm such a huge fan of just what you're doing and just everything in your life and just getting to be a part of it. And so I'm just it's an honor to be on here today. But so yeah, just a quick background on me. My name is Josh Waddell. I'm originally from a town called Florence, Alabama, which is in the very northwestern corner of Alabama. And so now live here in Birmingham with my wife. We've been married for a little over 5 years now. And so she's a nurse and I'm a pilot. So I fly private jets for a living. I've done that now professionally for the past couple years, but I've been flying for more than 12 years. And as Austin said, it's been kind of a long journey to get there. I've done a lot of other things. I've got a background in business management, mostly in service industry. I've managed a lot of restaurants and some other businesses that are tied to the food and beverage industry. And then I've also had some experience in sales and personal training. And so the guys that I work with, we kind of laugh and say I've had more jobs than just about anybody. And so it was all a means to an end, and to get me to where I am today. So now I just fly airplanes and then talk to guys like Austin in my spare time. So then yeah, we can go anywhere you want to from there.
I love it. Well, Josh, one other thing I forgot to mention also is that so Josh is like one of the best question askers on the planet. And he actually started his own podcast as well, which I'm like super fired up because he, by nature, obviously is flying, all over the country and sometimes all over the world. And it gets to just have incredible people in the back of that plane that he's flying. So I'm like so pumped for him to go on this journey of just interviewing incredible people. So super excited about that. But for you, Josh, I'd love to kind of dive in really to your past work experiences. Really, I'd love for you to just kind of glean some wisdom, I guess, from the different phases leading you up to where you're at now, being a full-time pilot. But obviously, like you mentioned before, you had a lot of different experiences doing a lot of things. And I just love it because you and I have talked about and previously of just how the Lord never wastes a second of your life and he's going to teach you something
Yeah.
in every season. And so if you want to kind of go through each of the different phases, like whenever you started in your career of kind of like the bigger themes or the principles that you learned in each of these different phases of each industry that you played a part in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so I always knew I wanted to be a pilot. I knew from the time I was 5 years old, I wanted to fly airplanes. And just a quick story to preface my work history. When I was 5 years old, I was with my granddad, and he was a farmer most of his life. And he and I were just out in the field one day, and I was riding with him on the tractor, and we were just hanging out there, and I was helping him work, and he was mostly working. And I remember, and he lived under what was called a military operational area, which is just basically think of like a big block in the sky of where military jets will go and practice maneuvers and just various training exercises. And So that day, there were 2 fighter jets, excuse me, that flew right over the top of us, and it seemed like they were, 100 feet above us, but I'm sure they were higher than that. But, as a 5-year-old, I just remember thinking, like, this is absolutely amazing. I mean, just the power, you could feel it in your chest as they flew over. And I told my granddad, I said, oh, I called him Papa. I said, Papa, I pointed up at him. I said, I'm gonna do that when I grow up.
That's
And
awesome.
he kinda chuckled and he said, "Well, son," he said, "I hope you do." And so I had this dream my whole life of flying airplanes. And so, but I grew up in a small town, kind of lived out in the county, and so there just weren't a lot of resources at the time. This was before YouTube and social media, and it was a lot harder to try and figure out your way through any career. And so the only way I knew how to fly airplanes was to go through the military. That's what you hear. And so I worked in restaurants, my whole high school career and even into my college years, and then eventually made my way to the Air Force. But unfortunately, after I got in, I had a back injury that I had previously, and so re-injured it when I got to basic training in the Air Force. And to sum everything up, they basically told me, "Hey, you had this injury before you got here, so you're somewhat of a liability to us. So we're gonna cut, part ways with you." And so, which I was extremely devastated. And so that was the only way I knew how to become a pilot at the time.
Um,
And so after I got back home, I was, depressed and licking my wounds and trying to figure out how to go from there. Which, hindsight 2020, it was actually the perfect thing because my dad was going through colon cancer at the time, and he had gotten pretty bad. And so for the next probably 6 months or so, I was able to take care of him and be at home with him. So I just kind of look at it as a blessing in disguise. But moving forward, I knew I wanted to pursue this dream of aviation. I just didn't know how to go about doing it. And so just went to my local airport and walked up to the lady at the desk and I said, "Excuse me, ma'am, like I've wanted to fly airplanes my entire life. I have no idea how to go about doing that, but this is an airport and you're behind the desk. Can you help me?"
I love that.
So she said, "Yeah, I think I can help you out." So she gave me a list of flight instructors and said, call all these folks and just talk to them, and they can get you headed in the right direction. So it was a list of probably 7 different flight instructors, called every one of them, and they basically told me the same thing and told me how much it was going to cost. Which back then, flight to get everything that you need from private pilot to commercial pilot, was around probably 50 to $80,000, and then nowadays it's more like 80 to $120,000.
Yeah.
And so, at this time, I'm 20, 22, 23 years old, and I'm like, I have no idea how I'm gonna pay for all this. I didn't have a way to get loans. I couldn't get, I didn't have great family members, loved me very much, but just weren't able to co-sign on a loan for me. So
Yeah.
I couldn't go the traditional school route. And so basically it was just up to me to figure out how to pay for all of it. And so, if you're not extremely smart, then you're got to rely on toughness. And so I just set out on a journey just to work as much as I possibly could. I would save up money and then I would pay for just flying lessons as I went along. So to start off, I had a job. Uh, I took a job at the airport mowing grass, and so I would get there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I would mow grass essentially up until about noon or 1 o'clock, and then would leave the airport, go home, shower, change, and then go to a restaurant that I worked at, which was Buffalo Wild Wings at the time. And then I would work a night shift waiting tables at that restaurant. And then I did that for years. And I would just make enough money. I usually made enough money every week to pay for my living expenses and one flying lesson. And so I did that for a very long time. And then in the meantime, got promoted into management, which kind of, kickstarted an initial career in business management and restaurants. And then on the side, throughout the years after that, would just continue to build ratings. So as a pilot, you start out with your private license, you go then to instrument, you get a commercial rating, and then a multi-engine rating, and then just just a myriad of other type ratings after that. But the main thing was private, instrument, commercial, multi-engine. And so over the course of several years, just like I said, working full time in restaurant management and some other businesses, I just slowly whittled away at it, and finally acquired all my type ratings, or excuse me, not type ratings, but licenses that I would need to get a job flying airplanes.
Yeah.
And then that's when COVID hit,
Yeah.
and then all the flying jobs went away.
Yeah. Well, Josh, there's so much to unpack, obviously, in just the quick story that you told there. But I think the beauty of all of it is that like you've just persevered through every individual season of that, right? This is obviously why we're such good friends. But just looking back on the fact that you even had that experience as a 5-year-old with your granddad and have continued to live that out. I mean, that is like this massive. You don't hear that very often, I feel like, especially from such a young age to living out a passion and something that you like feel called to do at a very, very early age to go fly airplanes. And you've literally done everything in your power to go over the obstacles of whatever it was in the near future to figure that out of how to actually do it. And so that's why I just respect so much about you is that you just dive into that to say like, nope, this is what I know I'm here to go do. So it doesn't matter what's going to be in front of me. I got to get over that obstacle so I can actually become a pilot and live this dream out. So I think that is fascinating. So going back to, I mean, obviously cutting grass at the airport. I mean, I just love stories like this because it's just like Josh is just a workhorse, man. He's a dog that's going to get out there and go. But for you, cutting grass at the airport and obviously learning how to manage people through the restaurant industry and like understanding that, what in that season at least, obviously it was a means to an end to get you to this pilot life. But in that season, what do you feel like was the bigger takeaways, I guess, that you learned just about yourself or just, I don't know, just any kind of principles that you pulled from that season?
Yeah, sure. Well, I would say as far as myself goes, just having to deal with discouragement, and it comes in many forms, and a lot of times I think people set out on on a journey, whether it's starting a business or just any kind of large endeavor. It usually is it's harder, it takes longer, and there's a lot more heartbreaks along the way than you
Yeah.
anticipated before you start. And so, and two, trying to get people to buy into your vision, especially when it's a massive vision. And so for me, someone growing up in a small town, and people who mostly came from humble beginnings, and worked honorable jobs, but just jobs that were maybe not on the same scale of what it was that I was trying to do. And so when you tell people about what you're trying to accomplish, oftentimes you're met with like, "Are you sure you want to do that? Or do you really think you have what it takes to do that?" Or, I had a lot of people tell me, "Josh, that, being a pilot requires a lot of discipline and studying, and like you're not really that type of person," just all these just negative comments that would continually come my way.
Yeah.
And so it was years of fighting through that um, until things started to shift and I started to get some success, and people would say, "Okay, Josh went a lot further than I expected him to go, and he still hasn't given up yet." So it kind of started off with, it felt like me against the world. It really wasn't. But and as time went along, I continued to have more and more people to buy into that vision. But initially, it was just me and my own vision,
Yep.
and trying to just battle off that discouragement. So personally, that was the biggest thing to overcome for me. And then from a professional perspective, especially working in the restaurant industry, there's just so many facets that go into running a restaurant. And if you've ever worked in a restaurant, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's so many different personalities at play. Things can go wrong literally in a matter of 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So just learning those leadership skills, once I moved into a management role, and learning the different types of personalities that you have to deal with, the different situations that you deal with on a daily basis. And when I first started, I was a terrible leader, because I thought just because I was a high performer, that meant that I was going to become a great leader.
Yeah.
And that was definitely not the case. So when I first started in management, I got ran over for probably the first 6 months or even longer, because I wanted to be the person that was liked. I wanted to be the person that could help everybody. And it actually made the team worse because I was trying to hop in and do everything for them. And so after that first 6 months, I then made a shift to, okay, well, now I'm just going to lead with an iron fist. So it was another 6 months of poor leadership because I went from the opposite of, went from being the nice guy, trying to be everybody's friend, to then trying to, be this slave driver because I had gotten run over for so long. And then after that, I finally started inching my way into transitioning into being the right type of leader that I needed to be. And, it's different for everybody on your team. You can't be a one size fits all. You have to learn what motivates people. And you have to learn how to, lead with energy and also delegation,
Yeah.
and try to accomplish because you can't do everything on your own. And that was my mentality when I first started out. And so, again, to answer your question, just going through those leadership phases, and over the course of several years, with the help of our general manager and regional managers, they were really to help. They were there to help, kind of carve those leadership skills into me, which I had no idea was going to help me throughout the rest of my career. I mean,
Yeah.
there's still things that I use to this day, leadership principles that I learned in the restaurant industry that I still apply in the aviation world because there's so many different people that I still have to deal with on a daily basis, whether it's other guys that I'm flying with, or if it's people on the ground that are fueling the airplane or getting things that we need, dealing with customer service agents at the FBOs, rental car, hotels. I mean, all the things that go into being a corporate pilot. I use those skills that I learned back managing restaurants to this day.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I love that so much just from a standpoint of just it's just building you to who you are today through those experiences. Though, and I love the point that you made because I feel like that's a reality for everybody is that you really don't know how to take the next level until you get in the weeds of actually doing it on a daily basis and learning from it, right? And so, like, your
Right.
point of, like, 6 months I did it this way, 6 months I did it this way, and then ultimately that came to a better way of, like, molding me into the leader I should have become, and I think there's really it's impossible to know that until you do it, right? And so I think that's just such an awesome, kind of principle that you're pulling from that season of just saying that built me into, the person that hopefully is, like, leading in a way that's empowering others and delegating and doing the things you need to do, which is just fantastic. Okay, so jumping over into pilot life, obviously, COVID came, and actually, real quick, before we jump into that, you did a quick stint in Birmingham. That's about the time I guess you moved to Birmingham
Right.
and got into the sales world. Tell us just a quick little snippet of, like, why you did that, why you got into sales, and then the kind of the background behind that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, like Austin was saying, moved down to Birmingham, and exactly when COVID hit. And the reason why we moved to Birmingham is because my wife Blair is a nurse, and she got a job at Children's Hospital. And so at this time, it's like, well, there's no, I mean, airlines were furloughing pilots. I mean, it was just, if anyone, can remember, there was no one flying. And so, and I had no idea what was going to happen with that industry. I had no idea how long COVID was going to last. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm going to move down to Birmingham with her, and I'm going to find other work. And that's just kind of the way I've always been. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And so she and I moved down to Birmingham, and actually, I had a book that was given to me years ago by one of my managers, or actually my general manager at Buffalo Wild Wings, and it was Rich Dad Poor Dad, and which was written by Robert Kiyosaki. And at the beginning of the book, he talks about how he was a sales rep for Xerox, which is a company that sold copiers. And I remember him saying, the best skill you can learn in life is sales. And so we moved down here, and Blair's brother at the time was working for a copier company, and he told me, he said, "Hey," he said, "if you wanna try a sales job out, I work for a copier company that's opening a branch in Birmingham, and we'd love to interview you and see if that would be a good fit." So I just remember from that book, Robert Kiyosaki he worked for Xerox and sold copiers, and learned how to sell that way. So I thought, well, sales experience is great experience to have regardless of whatever you're doing in life. So I took a job with a copier company and sold copiers and some other workflow automation software for about a year and a half, and was a tremendous experience. And I actually used those skills to help leverage finding work in Birmingham as a pilot when things started coming back around.
Yeah, that dude, I love that. Number 1, you saw something in the book and you're like, "Well, I'm just gonna run the play because I know it's a valuable skill that I need to learn as a life lesson." And to your point, Josh, I fully agree. I've heard it said that, like, sales is such a like you said, the number 1 skill to learn in life because in anything that you have to be successful in, you have to learn how to communicate. And I feel like communication is such a big part of sales, right? Because 'Cause you're communicating obviously whatever product or service that you are selling. And what we have to tell the story just really quick, Josh, because I want to tell you just how good of a friend he is. So obviously Flywheel, we just purchased Flywheel in 2023. Josh had just, I guess, finished at that point. You had finished in the sales world and you were flying full time at that point, I think, if I
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
and so yeah, because you were in between flights, that's right. So Josh was in between flights, and I was like, I've never done sales before, but I respected Josh, and he was like, "Man, sales is such just a great way to, like, personal develop yourself and these different things." So I'm like, "Let's just do this thing." And this is the kind of friend that he is because he's like, "All right, I'll jump in the car with you. Let's just drive around businesses and figure out, like, who needs accounting services that we can go sell." And so I'm like, "Please come with me because if you don't show up, I'm probably knocking on no doors. I'm just gonna literally drive around Birmingham and go back home and not do anything." So he comes up, we go to this very first business that is a Pilates studio or like a women's gym essentially.
Yeah.
And, I'm nervous as all get out. One quick note on that, I didn't even know I needed business cards or anything. I talked to Josh the day before, and he's like, "Yes, you need business cards if you're walking in the doors of businesses." Like, that's how inexperienced I was for any kind of sales. And so we're walking into this Pilates studio, and we walk in, and all these women kinda look at us, just 2 guys walking into this place. And the only thing that came out of my mouth was I pointed at my chest and I said, "This is Austin. This is Josh. Here's my card." And I literally just felt like a caveman, but because Josh was right next to me, I'm just super, super grateful for him as a friend because he was there to literally, like, be my support wing and then also coach me as we left that studio to say, "You probably shouldn't do that again." He didn't say that, but I knew I shouldn't do that again. But the beauty of this whole thing is that, like, he was there with me, he showed up, he literally was, like, coaching me up because he had a year and a half plus of sales experience of walking in random businesses to kinda show me how to, like, build a relationship on the fly for somebody that you just met, and he is so good at that. He's, like, genuinely interested in every single person that he meets, and so I kinda followed his lead throughout that whole day. I think that day we probably, I don't know, 15 or 20 businesses that we knocked on and walked in the doors of and ended up having some really, really good conversations, but I'll remember that day to the day I'll die because it's just like, what a friend this person was to show up with me out of the blue. He could have chose to stay at home during one of his off days and not flying, but he shows up and walks into these different places with me, trying to coach me up to become a better person. So super respected, Josh. Super grateful for that. And yeah, thanks for going on the journey with me that day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, and to add on to that though, it's like anyone with a sales background, especially, going and cold knocking on doors, that is so difficult. I mean, especially the first time you ever want to do it. And I'm sure in that moment, you just wanted to crawl inside your skin and just never come back out again.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just,
yeah.
you have those moments where you feel like you've crashed and burned. But the whole thing is like you go and you do the next one,
That's right.
and you get a little bit better. And so that day with you, I knew, because I mean I did the same thing myself when I first started. That first time it's gonna be rough. And so, but you were able to feel the full weight of it and say, okay, that was my first experience. We're gonna go knock on the next door and it's gonna be a little bit better. And so, and here's why the day was so fun for me is because that you made so much progress just in that one day of going out and cold knocking on, the doors of these businesses. So we went from you talking, about yourself in the third person, morning, saying this is Austin, to at the very end of the day, we're walking into businesses and I'm hanging out at that point because, we had talked to so many people at that point. You had found your rhythm and your flow. You had learned how to kind of, we'll use a football term, kind of stay in the pocket, so to speak,
Yeah.
instead of just running in there saying, I'm Austin, this is what I do, here's my card, call me. you learn to stay in there with them, build rapport with them, ask them about whether it's an energy drink they were drinking or the shoes they had on or picture on the wall, and learn how to, because that's when you build rapport with people, they're going to remember you. And to your point earlier, and you're the same way, Austin, if you're truly genuinely interested in people, you just can't help but build that rapport with people. And so I think, as any salesperson, if you're truly interested in the people that you're talking to and you truly care about adding value to their lives, it's going to take you so much further. So that being said, just to watch you progress in that one day was absolutely amazing. And to your point, I will never forget that day for the rest of my life either. So so much fun.
Well, the biggest thing, and I appreciate you saying that, Josh. The biggest thing that I remember about that with you is that if you would not have been there with me, after leaving that gym of doing the whole point at my chest thing, I would have driven back home and gotten back in bed and just tried to wish that day away. But because I had the accountability of you being there with me, and this is why, like, to me, the biggest thing that gleans from that is obviously trying to get better in sales and communication, that whole thing. But having people in your corner that is just want you to succeed, I think it's just one of the most beautiful things in life. And so, yeah, super grateful for the guidance along the way on that day. Okay, going back to your story, I do want to dive in to kind of just give us kind of a day in the life of a pilot. What does that look like? I mean, what does it look like that you're navigating right now? Just give us kind of like a day in the life.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of different types of pilot jobs out there. So you can be a cargo pilot and fly for UPS or FedEx. You can be an airline pilot and fly for companies like American, Delta, United, and then there are charter companies with private jets, companies like NetJets or FlexJet, and then you have jobs, which is the job that I have. So I fly one. This is my full-time job. I have one jet that I fly for a company. It's a heavy equipment company. We sell bulldozers and just any kind of earth moving equipment or road paving equipment. And it's funny when I say that, because people think that I'm flying tractor parts around, which is
Uh,
that's not the case. So we use our jet for entertainment purposes, and so we're a very large distributor, and we have branches in Alabama and Georgia and Florida, and so we use our plane for entertainment. We have a deep sea fishing boat down in Destin, and so pretty much throughout the entire summer, we're picking up customers, taking them down to Destin where the boat is. They go out deep sea fishing the next morning. We spend the night. They go out deep sea fishing the next morning, come back to the plane with everything they caught for the day, take them back to where we picked them up from. We then fly to the next city and pick up the next group. We take them back down to Florida, and then they go fishing the next day. So basically, that's our entire summer. As we go into fall, we start doing some sporting events. We'll do football games, we'll do some basketball games, golfing trips, hunting trips, things of that nature. And then at the beginning of the year, things are pretty slow. And then as we progress back into the spring, it starts to pick back up again. So generally speaking, day to day, what my duties look like. So unlike with the airlines, the pilots, they just show up, everything's done for them. The plane is fueled, the flight plans have been made. Pretty much everything that goes into planning for the flight has been done, and the pilots just show up and fly the airplane. Whereas with us, there's a whole lot more that goes into it. We do all of our own flight planning. We do the fuel planning. We book our own rental cars, hotels. So logistically, every trip has there's a lot of elements that go into planning for each trip just outside of flying. So show up to the hangar, get the airplane ready. We don't have a flight attendant, so I have to stock the airplane with coffee, with snacks, liquor, beer, all the things that just go that you would have, on a commercial flight, but we're the ones that are doing it.
yeah.
So make sure the airplane is stocked, make sure the airplane is clean, make sure that the flight plan is as it should be, getting clearances, all those types of things, making sure that we're on time. And if if there are delays, whether it be with weather or air traffic control, that's being communicated to everyone else that's involved in the flight that day. And then we actually fly the airplane. which some days it's an hour or two, some days it can go longer than that. But there's just so many more things that go into it. We get to our final destination. We then have to place fuel orders for the next day. We have to do fuel planning and flight planning for the next day. We have to coordinate with ground operations there. We have a van that comes and picks everybody up. So I have to radio into them when we're, usually 10, 15 minutes out, say, hey, we're coming in. If you can have the van right side for us, if you can have a fuel truck waiting for us, and then anything else we may need for the next day. And, and yeah, and then just go from there. Again, like I said, the hotels, the rental cars, all that's on us as well. So it's basically planning everything that goes in and around the flight, and then also flying the airplane in the midst of it.
Yeah, Josh, honestly, we've never talked about this, but, like, I'm thinking about what you just described, and essentially, you're like an event planner. You're like
Yeah, yeah.
well, yeah, I mean,
Good way
obviously,
to
you're
put
a
it.
pilot flying a jet, but then you are also just having to do all of the things that you mentioned, the nuances of the pre-build up before the flight, the post build up after landing, and then repeating that back for the next group of people that are coming in to create this experience for them. And so that is pretty remarkable of all the things that you have your hand on top of the stress and the just the skill set that you have to literally fly a jet from point A to point B. So that's pretty remarkable, Josh. I've never really thought about that, but very cool to hear. So I appreciate you guys explaining the front end to the back end experience, what it's like being a private jet pilot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, and I think just with anything else that you do at such a high level, you just have to have the right systems and processes in place to be able to do all these things successfully. I mean, we get in the jet and we don't just start, flipping switches and hitting buttons. We have a list of things that we have to go through. So just like with that airplane, with everything that goes into that trip outside of just flying the airplane, we have systems and processes in place that ensure that we're going to be successful with our day. Whether it's, and we have a scheduler as well that helps us out with passenger information, all those things. But we're following checklists and procedures, throughout the day to make sure that all those other things have fallen into place, just like we do with the airplane we're flying in.
Yep. I think to me that's and I've talked to our team about this at Flywheel, but one of the things that I've like so respect about the aviation world is that the entire backbone of the aviation world is built off of checklists and procedures. I think it's like a beautiful thing. I mean, it's like the two people that live this out as perfect examples are pilots and doctors, right? You got to have the things checked in order to do the best, like to deliver the best possible thing you can deliver, right? To keep people's lives safe, right? And so the
Yep.
beauty of like every business is that we all can learn from exactly how pilots and doctors operate to integrate that into our business because we are trying to deliver an experience, service, product or whatever to any customer that needs our services, and having a standard that we live by, just like a pilot does, is such a beautiful thing because you might have flown a plane, 1,000 something times, but you're still going to literally go through step by step of that checklist before you ever even crank that thing up. And I just think it's just a beautiful thing. It's like this rhythmic thing that's in your life to make sure that you're keeping everyone safe and you're doing the job to the best of your ability, which I think is just a beautiful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and there's just, you fall into those mundane tasks that's like, okay, I've done this 1,000 times. Why am I? But things can simply, fall, fall between the cracks if you don't have those systems and processes
Yeah.
in place. And to go back to the experience that I had as a restaurant manager, I mean, I was following a checklist every single day, and there were things to the smallest things on there, like go outside in the parking lot before the restaurant opens and I'm looking around the parking lot, making sure there's no trash out there. I'm walking up to the building, making sure that the music is loud but not too loud, making
Yeah.
sure that the awnings are clean. When I open the door of the restaurant, is it too hard to pull open, or is it too easy to pull open? What's the door? Are there fingerprints on the windows? All these little things that I'm following on a daily basis. And
Yeah.
so, again, to your point, it's like you set all these systems in place so that you can maintain that level of excellence on a
Yeah.
daily basis.
Great way to put it, man. I love that so much. Okay, as we wrap up, Josh, I'm just curious, what are you dreaming about? What does Josh's life look like 10 years from now? Kind of give us a little picture in the future.
Yeah. So from a personal perspective, um, the biggest thing that we're looking forward to right now is we've got a baby boy on the way.
Let's go.
Yeah, yeah, he'll be here in January, and so, just trying to change my mindset, going from just being a husband now being, about to be a dad, and then what that looks like, for the future of our family, the lessons that I want to instill in him, the traditions, the values, and just setting up just that generational legacy. That's something that I'm really focused on right now. You and I have talked at length about this, and just in education in general, just trying to figure out what that's going to look like for him. I am not a fan of the public education system. I think there are just much more efficient ways for a child to learn, and then also just integrate so many more real life experiences throughout the day, as opposed to just being continuously being in a classroom all day long, just theorizing about things that they're really not going to use. So definitely passionate about that, building that legacy for him. Just personal finances as well, just building that for ourselves, getting ourselves into a position that will allow us to have a lot more flexibility and opportunities as the years go by. And I would say a huge goal of mine, and this is further than 10 years down the road, but I would love to get a type rating in a Gulfstream or a global business jet, and have Blair, my wife, get certified as a flight attendant, and then she and I just travel the world for a few years.
Let's go.
And then just fly these large business jets for folks, and just kind of travel around. And so yeah, and then I definitely want to, I miss being in the business world and sales and all that. And so I'm definitely looking for different ways to reintegrate that into my life. And so over these next few years, depending on if I stay at the company I'm with now, or if I transition to something a little bit more substantial, I definitely want to hop back into something, because the biggest problem for pilots is that you can't necessarily scale yourself. I can only
Yeah,
fly one plane at a time.
yeah,
So I definitely want to hop back into something that I can scale, I can build, and then it eventually, run itself without me being present 100% of the time.
yeah.
So those are a handful of things that I'm dreaming about right
Let's
now.
go, Josh. I just love your heart, man, of just like already thinking about the child that hasn't been born yet. It's like legacy, like what you're going to do as a dad and that season that's coming upon y'all. It's fun. I'm going to be learning a lot from you, Josh, as you take that road. We'll share notes together as we do this parenting thing together, man. It's a lot of fun. But
Yeah.
yeah, dude, I love it. I think what you're dreaming about is so much fun. I didn't even know that about you and Blair doing this world traveling thing in a Gulfstream, man. That sounds pretty
Yeah.
fantastic as well. So, well, cool, man. Well, is there any? I always want to ask you: what's the best place for people to find you if they want to reach out, if they're listening to this episode and they're like, man, I got to get in touch with Josh. What's the best place?
Oh yeah. So okay, I'm not a big, as Austin knows, I'm not a big social media person, but I'm getting pulled out of my shell. So and in fact, I didn't even have social media for several years. But uh, so yeah, so on Instagram, it's just Joshua. It's at Joshua C Waddell. Last name is spelled Waddell. And then, or you can find me on Facebook, and it's just Josh Waddell. So those are the two places you can find me now. But we'll probably be able to find me on some different platforms in the near future.
Let's go, Josh. I love it so much, man. Thanks again very much for having the conversation on here. Super grateful for you as a friend and as a person. And thanks. Let's wrap up on podcast number 2.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, Austin. It's been a pleasure to be with you. And like I said before, man, I'm just so excited for what you're doing. I told you from when you first started this thing, man, I just think where you're headed is going to even blow your own mind. And so, yeah, man, like I said, I'm your biggest fan, and happy to be, and like you said, when it comes to the kids, happy to be just along for the journey, and learn together. So yeah, man, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun journey, man. I appreciate it, Josh. We'll talk soon.
Ab- Absolutely.